technical education. There is second. It's been seconded. There being no objection, the same is hereby referred to the said committee.
Mr. Speaker, may we request the Secretary General to read the next proposed resolution?
The Secretary General is directed to read the title of the next proposed resolution.
Yes, Mr.
Including the name
Speaker,
of the authors
proposed
and
resolution
co-authors.
number 427 is entitled A Resolution Directing the Bangsamoro Darul Ifta to issue fatwa on what constitute halal conduct of public officials and employees as Khalifa in the Bangsamoro Autonomous Government pursuant to moral governance, authored by the Honorable MP Abdullah Hashim, co-authored the Honorables MP Attorney Rasul Mitmug Jr., MP Attorney Omar Yasir Sema, MP Punduma Sani, MP Rasul Ismail, and MP Attorney Ali Pangalian Balidong, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I move to refer to this to the Committee on Rules.
There is a motion to refer proposed resolution number 427 to the Committee on Rules. Is there any second? It's been seconded. There being no objection, the same is hereby referred to the said. Is there an objection? The lady from Tugaya is recognized.
Good afternoon, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to pose an objection that it should be a simple resolution, considering that under our rule section 5, rule 12, section 5, page 34, states that a simple resolution is a measure by the BTA to take action affecting its own procedure. Clearly, Mr. Speaker, the import of resolution number 427 is merely directory on the Darul Ifta to issue fatwa on what constitutes halal conduct of public official and employees. This requires immediate action on the part of Darul Ifta to issue as soon as possible what constitutes halal action so that there will be no confusion, and also to strengthen moral governance, Mr. Speaker. So I submit, Mr. Speaker, it should be a simple resolution. It's directory in character, and it is also adding to the strength of moral governance.
1 minute suspension. Majority Floor Leader,
Yes,
there
Mr.
is an
Speaker, I
objection.
agree with the manifestation of MP Maysara Latit Damon, and I withdraw my motion, Mr. Speaker.
Your question a while ago is valid, whether
Yes,
or not
Mr. Speaker.
the author is available to
Yes, Mr. Question.
defend.
May we know the Secretariat if the principal author is available to defend this particular resolution?
Is MP Abdullah Hashim present in the attendance?
In the plenary, Mr. Speaker, as we are practicing previous, Mr. Speaker, the principal author should be in the plenary to defend the particular resolution.
Mr. Speaker, I object to that also rule because yesterday we allowed a author in the second stage in Zoom, Mr. Speaker. So this is just a resolution.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, but he did not defend a particular resolution or a particular bill, Mr. Speaker. And as we are practicing in previous session, Mr. Speaker, that in defending a particular resolution or bill, the principal author should be present physically, so that we can consult him from time to time what actions to be done.
Anyway,
Yes,
our remedy is to recognize later MP Abdullah Hashim and require him to be present tomorrow. We can transfer this to the unfinished business tomorrow.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
rather than referring it to
Yes, to
the
the committee.
committee.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
I submit, Mr. Speaker.
So you agree, Majority Floor
Yes,
Leader?
Mr. Speaker.
Please,
Yes, I
please
move
change
to-
your motion.
Yes, I withdraw my previous motion, and therefore I move to treat this as simple resolution and be transferred for the business of the day.
There is a motion to treat proposed resolution number 427 as a simple resolution and be transferred to the business for the day. Is there any second? There being no objection, the same is transferred to the business for the day.
Mr. Speaker, may we request the Secretary General to read the next proposed resolution?
The Secretary General is directed to read the title of the next proposed resolution, including the name of the authors and co-authors.
Mr. Speaker, on proposed resolution number 428 is entitled Resolution requesting the Ministry of Basic Higher and Technical Education to report on the status or application of Republic Act number 11509 or an act establishing a medical scholarship and return service program for deserving students and appropriating funds therefore in BARM and prioritize its forthcoming implementation. Authored by the Honorable MP Abdullah Hashim. Co-authors, the Honorables MP Dr. Susana Salvador Anayatin, MP Ali Osalik, MP Muslima Asmawil, MP Abdul Muhmin Mujahid, MP Idi Ali, MP Sani Punduma, MP Siti Shahara Mastura, MP Attorney Omar Yasir Sema, MP Dr. Safrola Dipatuan, MP Attorney Jose Lorena, MP Engineer Aida Silungan, MP Rasul Ismail, MP Ahmad Abbas, MP Nabila Margarita Pangandaman, MP Dr. Muhammad Yaqub, MP Attorney Nabil Tan, MP Jamila Ramos, MP Engineer Don Mustafa Luong, MP Suwaib Puranon, MP Dr. Zulkarnain Abbas, MP Zayor Rahman Alonto Adjong, MP Attorney Ali Pangalian Balindo, MP Jamil Makaraya, MP Hatimil Hassan, and MP Abdul Wahab Pak, Mr. Speaker.
Majority Floor
Mr.
Leader.
Speaker, I move to refer this to the Committee on Basic Higher and Technical Education.
There is a motion to refer proposed resolution number 428 to the Committee on Basic Higher and Technical Education. Is there any second? There being no objection, the same is referred to the said committee.
Yes, may we recognize MP Adjong, Mr. Speaker.
The Deputy Speaker,
Thank you. Just a quick
the adjunct is
manifestation.
recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a quick manifestation. In order for uniformity on the basis of looking at the rules, Mr. Speaker, may I ask the members, since we have an official copy of the rules prepared by the Secretary General, may I suggest to the members that we rely on this official House rule so that we may not have any confusion, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much.
The manifestation of the Deputy Speaker is noted. Secretary
Yes, Mr.
General,
Speaker.
please remind the members of the Parliament to always bring with them the copy of the rules, the official rules.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, may we request the Secretary General to read the next proposed resolution?
The Secretary General is directed to read the title of the next proposed resolution, including the name of the authors and co-authors.
Mr. Speaker, the next proposed resolution is proposed resolution number 436 entitled A Resolution Directing the Regional Darul Ifta to organize an ad hoc committee to institutionalize zakat collection, management, and disbursement in the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao. Authored by the Honorable Dr. Alsad Satar.
Mr. Speaker, I move to refer this to the Committee on Rules, Mr. Speaker.
The Secretary General, I'm sorry. There's a motion to refer proposed resolution number 436 to the Committee on Rules. How about the Committee on Finance?
And Committee on Finance, Mr. Speaker.
And the Committee on Finance, Budget, and Management. Any second? Seconded, there being no objection.
Chair, Mr.
Is that an
Speaker.
objection again?
No, Mr. Speaker, I'd just like to make a clarification regarding the time with which the members can manifest their intention to be co-authors. Would it be before the referral or after the referral during the committee report?
Majority Floor Leader.
Yes, before the referral, Mr. Speaker.
So in that case, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to be co-author of proposed resolution 436.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. I myself, Mr. Speaker, would like to be a co-author.
The Secretary General is directed to note those who are interested to be co-authors of this resolution.
Mr. Speaker,
Yes,
Mr. Speaker,
Mr. Speaker, the same concern because earlier we want to be co-authors with the presented resolutions, but there was no question as whether we want to be part of those resolutions earlier, Mr. Speaker.
yes,
So,
Mr. Speaker.
if I may,
If any members would just raise their resolution has been read by the Secretary, so that
yeah,
we
but
can
what
move on.
about those previous one because we want to be
You can,
co-authors?
I think you can submit your names to the
Okay, thank you very much, Mr.
Secretary
Speaker.
General. We
Yes,
will
Mr.
relax.
Speaker.
We will relax the rules on that matter
Yes,
as of
Mr.
the
Speaker.
moment.
Mr. Speaker,
Mr. Speaker,
Mr. Speaker.
parliamentary inquiry. Mr. Speaker,
Parliamentary inquiry.
parliamentary inquiry. Mr. Speaker,
Mr. Speaker,
Mr.
Would
Speaker,
it be proper to refer it to two committees or just one committee, Mr. Speaker, to avoid confusion on the part of the proper committee to handle the resolution?
This involves financial, fiscal matters. So I think the Committee on Finance, Budget and Management should be included in the report.
Yes,
Would
Mr.
it be
Speaker.
possible, Mr.
Mr.
Speaker,
Speaker.
to just refer it to one committee so that this will be taken up by the committee alone instead of two?
The
Mr.
two
Speaker.
committees
Can conduct a third meeting, Mr. Speaker. And
I
this,
submit, Mr. Speaker.
yes. Hmm.
Mr. Speaker,
yes, who are
Mr. Speaker.
calling from the Zoom.
MP Russell Mitmog, it will be followed by MP Tago.
The
Thank you very
gentleman from Bayabao is recognized.
Um,
Followed by
maraming salamat po, Mr. Speaker. Parliamentary inquiry lang. Kasi sa rules po natin, nakalagay doon yung Bangsamoro Justice Committee is the committee that shall decide anything about personal laws in relation to Sharia, even commercial transactions, Mr. Speaker. Considering that we have many resolutions na related na dito sa committee na to, maybe it's time to organize it so that we have a committee that can handle it properly. I believe the rules can handle it, but there's so many resolutions and bills referred to the rules. It will burden the said committee, Mr. Speaker. Yun lang po yung
Yes, Mr.
manifestation.
Speaker, I agree with the manifestation of MP Russell Mitmog, Mr. Speaker. In due time, we will convene and we will create.
I think the title of the resolution calls for the Darul Ifta
Darul
to
Ifta,
organize an ad hoc committee.
Yes, Mr.
And
Speaker.
it is the Committee on Rules that controls the organization of committees,
Yes,
including
Mr.
ad hoc committees and subcommittees. I think it's proper. Session resumed. Majority Floor Leader.
Joint committee na lang,
Request
joint
Secretary
committee,
General
finance.
to proceed.
Eh,
with the-
No, I think we have
The
recognized
MP
already
Tago.
MP Tago,
Yes,
the
yes.
deputy Majority Floor Leader. MP Tago, you're recognized. The volume, please. Audio, please. Nakamute ka.
Nakamute ako. Mr. Speaker, dinig ba?
Okay.
Dinig ba, Mr. Speaker?
Yes,
Yeah,
we can
we
hear
hear
you.
you.
Lababol boys, dinig na dinig.
Pero sa plenary, dinig ba? Dinig natin ang sarili natin, pero sa plenary, hindi yata.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, we loud and clear, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. Regarding my parliament,
Mr. Speaker, can I
Mr.
come
Speaker,
in?
We have already recognized the Deputy Majority Floor Leader. The Deputy Speaker will be recognized later.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Mr.
I'm sorry, Deputy Speaker Hassan. We have recognized the Deputy Majority Floor Leader Tago.
Mahirap kasi maraming deputy.
The Deputy Speaker Hassan will be recognized later.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I suggest that it should be referred to the two committees. Committees on Sharia and Committee on Finance. Dahil sa lahat yung mga ngailangan ng finance o budget, the Finance Committee has to be involved in order ba nila kasi sila magbigay ng pera. Halimbawa, yung pag-establish ng Islamic University, in as much as requires money, it requires appropriation. The Committee on Finance has to be involved. So, by joint committee, dalawang committee ang mag-handle noon. Ang Committee on MBSGE at at the same time, ang Committee on Finance should be also involved. Yun ang kailangan natin because of the fact that lahat yung ma-involve sila, kailangan magkasali sila sa pagbuo ng resolution o pagbuo ng isang batas. Yun lang, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Duly noted. The Deputy Majority Floor Leader is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I give way to the most senior Deputy Speaker, MP Ati Milasan. My parliamentary inquiry, Mr. Speaker, is the same that was raised a while ago by MP Rasul Mitmug. Because we have a Committee on Justice that handles Sharia matters, regarding Sharia matters. And my number two parliamentary inquiry is that do we have a Committee on Religious Affairs? I think it is high time, Mr. Speaker, with the indulgence of the Majority Floor Leader, that we should create a Committee on Religious Affairs, considering our situation in the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao. It is very imperative that Committee on Religious Affairs be created, especially so that Hajj, Darulipta, and other Sharia matters is under the jurisdiction of the new government in the BARM. That's my parliamentary, Mr. Speaker, two parliamentary inquiries. Thank you very much.
Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, may we, the manifestation of MP Tago is duly noted. We will discuss that on the Committee on Rules.
It was a parliamentary inquiry. I think
Yes,
it
Mr. Speaker,
requires
we will discuss that in the
response.
Committee on Rules, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker.
Yes, MP.
Mr. Speaker.
MP Ambuluto to be followed by MP Mujahid.
The Deputy Minority Floor Leader is recognized.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, Mr. Presiding Officer, Brother Majority Floor Leader. I would object to the inclusion to the referral to the Committee on Finance, Budget, and Management, Mr. Speaker. If I may allow a one-liner, we are to put it under the jurisdiction of the Committee on Finance, Budget, and Management would treat zakat as public funds, and that would entail so many complications that I don't think zakat management in the region would allow. Nonetheless, I would second the earlier motion of the Majority Floor Leader to refer it solely on the Committee on Rules, particularly in the matter of to determine whether we have jurisdiction on acting on the substance of that resolution, Mr. Speaker. So it is an objection on the reference to two committees, but would rather push for its reference to the Committee on Rules. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The ruling of the chair has already been stated. I think that matter can be resolved at the committee level when the Committee on Rules and the Committee on Finance will meet on the proposed measure.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. MP Mujahid, Mr. Speaker.
MP Mujahid, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think, Mr. Speaker, this particular resolution, it's only need to be referred to Committee on Finance, since this all relevant or related to financial matter, Mr. Speaker. And as far as referring it to any particular or any other committees which tackle the Sharia, I don't think that Zakah is relevant or related to Sharia, Mr. Speaker. So I suggest that it can only be referred to Committee on Finance as well as the Committee on Rules, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Duly noted.
Duly noted. Duly noted, MP Mujahid.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker.
There is a problem with the audio, Mr. Speaker.
There is a problem with your audio. We will recognize you later. Anyway, your manifestation has been duly noted. Majority Floor Leader.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, we proceed, Mr. Speaker. May we request the Secretary to read the next proposed resolution.
The Secretary General is directed to read the title of the next proposed resolution, including the name of the author and co-authors.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, on the next proposed resolution is proposed resolution number 444, entitled A Resolution Creating the Parliamentary Leadership Caucus, authored by the Honorable MP Attorney Paisalin Tago. Co-authors, the Honorables MP Deputy Speaker Attorney Nabil Tan, MP Deputy Speaker Attorney Omar Yasir Sema, MP Deputy Speaker Leo Rahman Alonto Adjong, and MP Deputy Majority Floor Leader Kadafi Jimanguda Dato, MP Deputy Minister Attorney Jose Lorena, MP Abraham Burahan, MP Minority Floor Leader Attorney Laisa Adamia, MP Deputy Minority Floor Leader Attorney Rasul Mitmug Jr. Mr. Speaker.
Majority Floor Leader.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, may we request the Secretary there to include my name as co-author of this particular resolution, Mr. Speaker. Mr.
Yes,
Speaker,
and MP Hatimil, the Deputy Speaker Hatimil Hassan has texted me to include his name as co-authors also.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move. Yes, MP.
Yes, MP.
Mr. Speaker, may I request that after the reading of a particular resolution, proposed resolution, the planner will be asked if they want to be co-authored.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. We will do that, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move to treat this as simple resolution be transferred for the business of the day, Mr. Speaker.
There is a motion to treat this as simple resolution and be transferred to the business for the day. Yes, MP Maysara.
Mr. Speaker, because of the manifestation a while ago by MP Baintan, I would like to be clear that after reading the author and co-author, the Secretary General be directed to call upon members who wish to be co-authors, Mr. Speaker, and I wish to be co-author.
You want to be co-author?
Yes, and we were not yet called, Mr. Speaker, before he was, before our esteemed colleague in the Majority Floor Leader was asking for referral. So may we be asked, Mr. Speaker?
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Yes,
we will soften the rules and the next incoming sessions before we refer to the to appropriate committee. I will ask the body to whether to signify their interest as co-author.
Anyway, those who are interested to be a co-author, you can raise your hands and or submit your names to the Secretariat.
Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman from Sulu is recognized.
Just to clarify the process, Mr. Speaker,
will it be the majority floor leader, or it can be the majority floor leader or the speaker that will state that all those who want to join this resolution or bill as co-authors
The majority floor leader, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, so we will be expecting that before
Yes,
we
Mr. Speaker.
endorse it to the proper committee, that the majority floor leader will provide the opportunity to the
Anyway,
members.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
anyway, as presiding officer, the presiding officer also has the power to call on the members who would want to be author or co-authors on a certain measure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. There is a standing motion, Mr. Speaker, to treat this
There
as
is a
first.
motion to treat proposed resolution number 444 as a simple resolution and be transferred to the business for the day. Is there any second?
Second.
Being no objection, proposed resolution number 444 is transferred to the business for the day. Majority Floor Leader.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, we are on item number 8, first stage of bills. May we request the Secretary to read the first BTA Parliament bill, Mr. Speaker.
The Secretary General is directed to read the title of proposed BTA Parliament Bill number 100, including the name of the authors.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. On first stage of bills, we have the first BTA Parliament Bill number 100 is entitled An Act Upgrading the Existing Dato Halon Sakilan Memorial Hospital in Tawi-Tawi from its present level 1 with 25 authorized bed capacity into level 2 with 100 bed capacity and appropriating funds therefore and for other purposes. Authored by the Honorable MP Safrula Dipatuan, Mr. Speaker.
Majority Floor Leader.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, this is a private member bill, Mr. Speaker. However, the second BTA Parliament bill in the first stage of bills have the same title, Mr. Speaker. Can we proceed to that, Mr. Speaker, so that any members in two particular bills may signify their interest as co-authors, Mr. Speaker?
Yes. The Secretary General is directed as commanded by the Majority Floor Leader.
Yes, to read the second bill, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, on second BTA Parliament Bill is BTA Parliament Bill number 103, entitled An Act Upgrading the Dato Halon Sakilan Memorial Hospital into a Level 2 hospital, increasing its bed capacity, upgrading its professional healthcare services and facilities, authorizing the increase of its medical personnel and appropriating funds therefore. Authored by the Honorables MP Amil Bahar Mawalil, MP Al-Shade Sali, MP and MP Idi Ali. With co-authors, the Honorables MP Attorney Liza Masud Alamia, MP Engineer Baintan Ampatuan, and MP Attorney Rasul Mitmug Jr., MP Attorney Suharto Ambulutu, MP Engineer Don Mustafa Luong, MP Rasul Ismail, MP Abraham Burhan, and MP City Sahara Mastura, Mr. Speaker.
Majority
Mr.
Floor Leader.
Speaker, again, this is a private member bills, both, and any members of the Parliament who signify their interest as co-authors may just raise their hands so that the Secretary may take note. Authors. And including those on Zoom, the Secretariat may just take note of them. Mr. Speaker, may we proceed? May we request the Secretary to read the third proposed bill for this session?
The Secretary General is directed to read the title of the next proposed resolution,
Bill, Mr.
proposed bill,
Yes,
including
Mr.
the name of the author and co-authors.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, on the third BTA Parliament Bill number 108 is entitled An Act Operationalizing the Bangsamoro Gazette, Appropriating Funds therefore and for other purposes. Authored by the Honorable MP Rasul Mitmug Jr. Co-authors, the Honorables MP Liza Alamia, MP Attorney Suharto Ambuluto, MP Baintan Adi Lampatuan, MP Engineer Don Mustafa Luong, MP Rasul Ismail, MP Amil Bahar Mawalil, MP Malaya Kandao, MP Idi Ali, and MP Zaur Rahman Alonto Adjong, Mr. Speaker.
Mr.
Majority
Speaker,
Floor
this
Leader.
is a private member bill. Any members of the parliament would like to signify their interest as co-authors may just raise their hand so that they can be recognized, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, may we proceed? May we request the Secretary to read the next proposed bill, Mr. Speaker?
The Secretary is directed to read the title of the next proposed BTA Parliament Bill, including the name of the author and co-authors.
On BTA Parliament Bill number 110, Mr. Speaker, is entitled An Act Creating the New Geographic Areas District Engineering Office, appropriating funds therefore and for other purposes. Authored by the Honorables MP Engineer Baintan Adil Ampatuan, MP Attorney Liza Alamia, MP Amil Bahar Mawalim, MP Attorney Suharto Abuluto, MP Engineer Don Mustafa Luong, MP Attorney Rasul Mitmug Jr., and MP Rasul Ismail, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker,
Majority
this
Floor
is a
Leader.
private member bill. Any members of the parliament who signify their interest as co-authors may just raise their hand. Yes, Mr. Speaker, we proceed to the second stage of bills. We are on item number 9. This is about BTA Parliament Bill number 93. The principal author would like to deliver a sponsorship speech. May we respectfully recognize MP, just one time, MP Zia Alonto, Mr. Speaker.
Yes. The gentleman from Ramain is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Majority Leader. In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful, all praise is due to Allah, the sovereign creator of the universe, the God of no equal. Peace and blessings be upon the last prophet, Muhammad, the son of Abdullah, whom God chose to be the bearer of his message and a sign of his mercy unto mankind. Peace and blessings to the pure progeny of the prophet and to his fortunate companions. Mr. Speaker, distinguished members of the Parliament, the Bangsamoro struggle for our right to self-determination is anchored on history and in a society where we have been historically treated as a minority. Our sense of history is hinged on resistance. For centuries, Mr. Speaker, we have resisted erasure in the hands of colonizers, and we have resisted death in the hands of our enemies. As books and documents that center the voices of the majority rarely ever reserve the space for our narratives, our ancestors have had to write down stories of our peoples in our own language and pass it on through an enduring oral tradition in our communities. Mr. Speaker, the story of the Battle of Bayang is one such story that has survived erasure and colonization. As we actively resisted US colonial forces, armed with the courage and conviction of the people of the lake, and under the leadership of the Sultan of Pandapatan of Bayang. This moment in our history sparked our tireless resistance against American colonialism, as our ancestors took up arms and laid down their lives to defend our people's land and life. Its location has since been known as Padang Karbala, which now roughly translate in English to place of sacrifice. Part of the popular literary tradition among the Maranao are Islamic stories known as Qissa. One of these stories relates the Malay version of the story of the battle in Karbala in Iraq, where Hussein, the son of the fourth Caliph, Ali, and the grandson of the Prophet, bravely fought against the armies from Syria and was martyred in the same place. Its popularity among the people of the lake has been associated with our own battle against American expeditionary forces, where as many as 300 to 400 Maranao people lost their lives in their staunch defense of our land and our community. As a consequence, the people designated the site of this battle as Padang Karbala, as a reference to the place of martyrdom of Hussein and his followers. Mr. Speaker, not only is the history of this battle indicative of our heritage as Bangsamoros, as we also associate the place and memory of this battle with our people's faith and conviction as Muslims. The death and suffering that the people of Karbala endured has become an enduring symbol of principled sacrifice in the struggle to uphold right against wrong and to live by justice and truth in the face of oppression and erasure. The Battle of Bayang similarly saw the martyrdom of the Sultan of Bayang and his family. Together with warriors and allies who had built and established their lives around the lake, they valiantly defended their homeland against American forces who carried with them far superior weapons and equipment that they were experienced in using as they conquered lands in their quest to colonize the world outside of their borders. What seems like a small moment to the uninitiated is a monumental event in our people's history. It sparked large-scale armed moral resistance against the Americans as news of the battle spread beyond the lake, inspiring a culture of resistance among the people of the Bangsamoro, who were also confronted with colonization and imperialism that threatened our own survival. As the United States colonization project evolved and expanded into a pacification campaign, specifically to suppress Moro resistance struggle here in Mindanao, our people also took strength and courage from narratives and resistance and survival that mirrored the pride and conviction that our people have shown in the Battle of Bayang. We have the Budtaho resistance by the Pausuks. We have several other incidents that mark the bravery and the courage of our ancestors in the fighting colonialization, in upholding their right to life, identity, and culture, Mr. Speaker. It is then imperative for our people to remember not only when we are waging an armed struggle to defend our land, but also when we are waging a parliamentary struggle that runs parallel to our constant continued vigilance as Bangsamoros. Commemorating the cultural and historical weight of our people's struggle is crucial to our deeper understanding and appreciation of the Bangsamoro government and the challenges that we have faced to get to where we are right now. We cannot run the risk of historical revisionism and integration into the larger Philippine history where the Moro narrative is treated as a mere footnote, not when our people's struggle is central to our people's liberation. In passing this measure, I hope that we can continue working towards the memorialization of our people's long and hard struggle as Bangsamoro fighting for our right to self-determination. I hope that our efforts toward the success for political transition also include upholding the spirit of transitional justice and reconciliation in the region as we continue the fight for recognition not as mere minorities, but as people of equal standing in the struggle for freedom. We cannot honor what we do not remember, Mr. Speaker, and it is our duty to make sure that our people's struggle persists not only in our own hearts and minds as Bangsamoros. We must also ensure that our narratives are present and alive in the consciousness of those who are yet to accept and acknowledge the very deep roots of our just cause and struggle, and to continue to assert our rightful place in history as we fight for our people's future and as we fight for our children's identities. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, privileged to deliver this authorship speech before you and before the whole of the Parliament. Thank you very
Majority
much.
Floor Leader.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I move to refer this to the Committee on Rules.
There is a motion to the lady from Tugaya is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to manifest myself as a co-author.
The Secretary General is directed to take note of the manifestation of the lady from Tugaya in his wish to become a co-author, in her wish to become a co-author. MP Rimbang, you are recognized.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh sa mga membro parliament, sa mga staff. Mr. Speaker, ay manifestation na mag-author na lang sa bill na ito. Dahil ito po yung mga ninuno natin na pinaglaban po nila, yung mga karapatan po na mga tagalan na lalo po sa bayang. Full support ako sa bill na ito. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Secretary General should take note of MP Rimbang's manifestation. Majority Floor Leader.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I move to have a 15-minute suspension, Mr. Speaker.
There is a motion to refer proposed bill 93 to the Committee on Rules.
Yes,
There
Mr.
in the
Speaker.
second.
Good.
There being no objection, the same is hereby referred to the Committee on Rules.
Mr. Speaker, 15-minute suspension for us.
Session suspended for 15 minutes. Be back at Session resumes. Majority Floor Leader.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, we proceed. We may respectfully recognize MP Zia for his sponsorship speech on BTA Bill number. We are on the second stage of Bill 95, Mr. Speaker. May we respectfully recognize MP Zia Lodto.
The gentleman from Ramain is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Mr. Speaker, members of this Parliament, we have already reached the second year of combating the COVID-19 pandemic. And while the vaccination program has already been rolled out, new waves of outbreak continue to threaten our communities as we wait for herd immunity to be achieved. As of June 22, Mr. Speaker, the Department of Health reported 1,367,894 total case with 52,696 active cases, 1,291,389 in total recoveries, and 23,809 total death nationwide. Speaker, in the ASEAN region, we have one of the highest total death rate due to COVID infection, Mr. Speaker. In the BARM, we have 9,862 of total cases with 527 active cases. 9,103 total recoveries with 232 total deaths. Mr. Speaker, studies indicate that the virus continues to mutate and adapt even with our attempts to fight back using stringent health protocols and aggressive vaccination drive. Despite, Mr. Speaker, the quarantine status, we still continue to struggle and to suffer. Many of us suffering, Mr. Speaker, because of the adaptation of this virus mutating into several variants, Mr. Speaker. The Department of Health on May 18 reported that the 24 active cases, 4 of the 5 variants of the virus that causes COVID-19 are already present in the country, meaning including the Delta, the dreaded Delta virus, which originated in India, which is the cause of death of around 390,000 deaths in the same country, Mr. Speaker. We have here reported the Delta variants and many other variants. In fact, previous months ago, we also have indicated the DOH, according to the report, the presence of UK variants. A few months ago, it was also reported, Mr. Speaker, that nearly 80% of the ICU capacity in Metro Manila has already been filled, with 70% of isolation beds occupied. Mr. Speaker, in the region, very recently, Mr. Speaker, I guess last month, the regional hospital also indicated that they have already reached the full capacity in their ICU beds for COVID patients. And even in Amay Pakpak Medical Center has already indicated by their report, Mr. Speaker, that they have also reached a critical level because of the influx of COVID patients that manifest critical and severe conditions, Mr. Speaker. With the imposition of lockdowns, people were forced to do home medication with private hospitals offering home services. And this is very, very, Mr. Speaker, expensive. And to those who cannot afford home service medical services, Mr. Speaker, this is, in fact, Mr. Speaker, a problem when it comes to home medication. Those who are, because of the overwhelming number of COVID patients, some of the hospitals have already advised their patients to do home medication. As a result, there was a sudden increase in the purchase of oxygen tanks, with private consumers hoarding supplies in anticipation of not being accommodated in hospitals due to the lack of bed space. We just simply cite what happened in India. Literally, they died of suffocation because of the lack of oxygen tanks. And many reports also indicate that there is a critical stage where hospitals may be needing additional oxygen tanks because of the rise of critical cases of the virus of the COVID patients, which is very, very, Mr. Speaker, just very, what you call this, problematic, no, in terms of the health condition and the overall health emergency situation. As a result, Mr. Speaker, the Department of Health was compelled to issue an advisory for local suppliers to regulate the sale of oxygen tanks to prevent shortages in hospitals and medical facilities. The recent surge of cases in Mindanao is a reminder for all of us to be on guard and be proactive as we continue to mitigate the adverse effects of the pandemic to our society. Mindanao, Mr. Speaker, is now being considered as the hot spot for COVID transmission. And many of our hospitals are in Mindanao, not only in the region, but even our neighboring regions, even in Davao City, also indicate that they have problems on the surplus, on the reserve of their medical tanks, and they'll be needing more. Let us learn from the experiences of others and adapt to this new normal setting, Mr. Speaker. It is in this premise that we are submitting this proposed measure for consideration. Once passed, 50 million pesos will be allocated for the purchase of additional oxygen tanks, which shall be distributed to the provinces of BARM. This will serve as a buffer stock should there be shortages of supply and save more lives in the near future. Mr. Speaker, together with my fellow authors of this measure, I hope that the committee, which this measure will be referred to later, will give ample consideration, due consideration due to the urgency of the request for an additional 50 tanks, 50 million pesos to acquire, Mr. Speaker, a number of tanks ready for the use of our constituents, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much.
Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move to refer this to the Committee on Finance, Budget, and Management.
Mr. Speaker, manifestation.
Okay, Speaker, I think during the first stage of this bill, when it was presented before the Parliament, I believe there are several members who also indicated their signified their interest to be co-author. I believe even the presiding officer, the Deputy Speaker Omasemo, also wanted to be part of this measure, supporting this measure as co-author. The Deputy Minority Leader, by Intan, I also saw her raised her hand. MP Mawalil and also MP Attorney Damdam and Latif also indicated her desire to be a co-author. So just to put that into record, so that in the committee report, all these names, all these members will be included as authors, Mr. Speaker. Thank you. And also those members who are also now raising their hands.
Anyway, those who are, before referring this to the appropriate committee, all of those who are interested to become, to be associated with this bill, you can submit your names to the Secretariat. Or you can raise your hands right now so that the Secretariat may know who among you are interested.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, manifestation.
Yes, the Deputy Majority Floor Leader is recognized.
Yes, I have two manifestations. First of all, I want to be co-author of that mission. Secondly, in view of the urgency of that bill, it is highly suggested, Mr. Speaker, that the Committee on Health or the Committee on Finance should immediately conduct committee hearing for the purpose. Kasi kailangan na kailangan. We know for a fact that there is a shortage of oxygen. And kung hindi natin ma-action ng kagad, ang sabi nga nila, anin pang damo kung patay ng kabayo. So we need to act on this as soon as possible, Mr. Speaker. That is my manifestation. Thank you very much.
The Secretary General is directed to submit immediately to the Committee on Finance this bill so that they can consider it. They can immediately begin consideration and deliberation of the matter.
Yes,
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker.
There is now a pending motion to. There is
objection, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker.
The Minority Floor Leader is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am objecting to the motion, Mr. Speaker. I would like to expand the motion that instead of referring this bill to the Committee on Finance, it should be a dual committee, Mr. Speaker, including the Committee on Health, because we need to take into consideration that it's not just the oxygen tanks that we lack, but also at the time like this where there is a surge, there is a lack of medicine for COVID-19, such as remdesivir, which is the treatment protocol, the standard treatment protocol for COVID-19. So it would be better if we include the Committee on Health so that they can further discuss immediately as to what are really needed. So not just the oxygen tank, but also medication like remdesivir. So I move that the majority floor leader would revise the motion that he has put forward and include the Committee on Health together with the Committee on Finance, Budget and Management in the referral, Mr. Speaker. I would also like to be included as one of the co-authors of this bill, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Majority Floor
Yes,
Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I agree with the minority floor leader to include the Committee on Health because this is an issue of the COVID-19, so it's proper to include the Committee on Health and the Committee on Finance, Budget and Management, Mr. Speaker.
Any
So I
second?
move, Mr. Speaker.
Any second?
Second.
There is for BTA Parliament Bill number
95, Mr.
95.
And duly seconded.
I'm sorry. Yes, BTA Bill number BTA Parliament Bill number 95 to the Committees on Health and Committee on Finance, Budget and Management. It's been seconded. There being no objection, the same is hereby referred to the said committees.
Yes. When we proceed, Mr. Speaker, on the second stage of this, may we respectfully recognize MP Mawari to deliver his sponsorship.
The gentleman from Tawi-Tawi is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At the onset, I'd like to thank the Majority Floor Leader for taking into agenda this measure, Mr. Speaker. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Apart from the interment of the dead, the establishment and maintenance of a cemetery serve as an archive of information, of historical events, of genealogy, and culture. They reflect the most visceral societal attitude towards spirituality and mortality. They are special places for reflection and contemplation. They serve several purposes to the living as much as they serve to those who have passed. Among its least known offshoot is that they serve as green infrastructure, also mitigating the effects of climate change. Mr. Speaker, however, more importantly, the Islamic faith laid down the specific rites of janazah, funeral. It is a reflection of our spiritual values and culture. The establishment of Bangsamoro public cemeteries is a reflection of the Bangsamoro's values, ensuring that each of the important rights are fulfilled by having the appropriate facilities. Mr. Speaker, honorable members of this chamber, aside from suffering, distress, and pain due to the loss of loved ones, Muslim residents in the region have to endure certain difficulties and have to travel great distances to bury their deceased due to a lack of provision for Muslim public cemeteries and or existing ones that are not well maintained and operated. Mr. Speaker, fellow members of this body, the implication of this enactment will not only be limited to the promotion of health, safety, and the general welfare of the constituents of the Bangsamoro government, but also the adoption of measures towards ensuring mutual respect and protection of the distinct beliefs, customs, and traditions of the Bangsamoro people and other inhabitants within the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao. It is also a policy of the Bangsamoro government to ensure and support, among other things, the promotion of health and safety and instill health consciousness among the people. It shall also uphold the people's right to have access to social services that promote well-being. Mr. Speaker and fellow members of this parliament, it is also further declared that the policy of the Bangsamoro government to recognize, protect, and guarantee the customs, beliefs, and tradition of the Bangsamoro people and other inhabitants in the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region. Mr. Speaker, the COVID-19 pandemic reminded us anew of our very mortal nature. Every one of us are able to identify persons afflicted by the infectious disease, be they family members, a friend or colleague, or a friend of a friend. Months ago, Mr. Speaker, the city of Jakarta in Indonesia and New Delhi in India reported running low on space for Muslim graveyards. Passing this measure, Mr. Speaker, is our way of expressing assurance that our beloved and even ourselves will be accorded with the appropriate rights in our final moments in the surface. Mr. Speaker, I appeal to this body to pass this measure as soon as possible. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move to refer this to the Committee on Social Services and Development, Mr. Speaker.
Committee on
Social Services and Development, Mr. Speaker. And the Committee on Local
before
Government.
before we
Local
rule on
government.
the referral, all of those who are interested to be associated or identified with this bill, please raise your hands or submit your names to the secretariat. The secretariat, please take note of those who have raised their hands.
Yes, Mr. Yes, Mr.
There is a motion
Yeah, Mr.
to
Speaker, it's not to be corrected, Mr. Speaker. Committee on Environment and Natural Resources and the Committee on Local Government, Mr. Speaker.
there is a motion to the Committee on Local Government.
Mr. Speaker.
There is a motion to refer proposed BTA Bill number 104 to the Committee on to be referred to the Committee on Local Government and the Committee on Environment and Natural Resources and Energy. Is there any second? There being no objection, this proposed bill is being referred to the said committees.
Again,
Majority
Mr.
Floor Leader.
Speaker, may we respectfully request MP Amawalan, Mr. Speaker, for the
The gentleman from Tawi-Tawi is recognized once again.
Number 105.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At the onset again, I'd like to thank the Majority Leader for taking into agenda this very important measure. Mr. Speaker, fellow members of this Parliament, ladies and gentlemen, I am honored to stand before you today in the hopes of introducing a measure that is consistent with the call and commitment of our beloved Chief Minister for Moral Governance. I implore for all to study this proposed measure as an initiatory mechanism to further improve the internal governance structures within the Bangsamoro Parliament. Our Parliament was established behind the idea and reinforced by the commitment for moral governance, a commitment to maintain honesty, integrity, transparency, and accountability. Given that one of the key purposes of Parliament, Mr. Speaker, as stated in the Bangsamoro Organic Law, is to hold the executive to account, there is a compelling reason that Parliament should be able to efficiently discharge its legal mandates and responsibility, Mr. Speaker, free from interference. Mr. Speaker, fellow members of this chamber, the Comprehensive Agreement on Bangsamoro features a parliamentary system of democracy in the Bangsamoro that was a break from the political tradition in the Philippines. In this parliamentary system, ministers in the Bangsamoro government are mainly drawn from the membership of the parliament. However, Mr. Speaker, although ministers are mainly appointed from within the parliament itself must be able to run its affairs independently and free from political pressures. This, Mr. Speaker, requires a system of governance that will give the parliament the necessary independence to scrutinize the work of the cabinet. Mr. Speaker, currently, Bangsamoro Parliament services have been vested in the office of the Speaker. The Speaker exercises these powers in consultation with leading members of Parliament, and when necessary, with the agreement of the Parliament as a whole. 4 deputy speakers, the majority leader, and the minority leader constitute the leadership of this Parliament. But there is no formal structure or committee to administer and manage the Parliament as a legal entity and parliamentary service. As an essential feature of parliamentary independence, efficient internal governance structures are required to be established to effectively manage parliamentary affairs. The creation of a parliamentary corporate body ensures that decisions in relation to parliamentary services are made involving all of the members of the parliament, as it guarantees cross-party involvement. This, Mr. Speaker, in turn enhances parliamentary leadership, provides consistency, and ensures the decisions are more likely to be applied over more than one parliamentary term. In short, it takes the politics out of the decisions and provide for more sustainable and successful parliamentary operations. Mr. Speaker, a parliamentary corporate body responsible for the members' services, buildings, staffing, and parliamentary budget is the gold standard for parliamentary democracy. It further allows ministers to do their jobs without having any complications dealing with the running of parliamentary services. Mr. Speaker, fellow members of this Parliament, in view of the foregoing statements, I respectfully recommend that a corporate body be established for the Bangsamoro Parliament through this measure. Ladies and gentlemen, the drive for independence, such as the one embodied in this proposed measure, is a necessary prerequisite to good parliamentary governments. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move to refer this to the Committee on Rules.
There's a motion to refer BTA Parliament Bill number 105 to the Committee on Rules. It has been seconded. There being no objection. You are interested to be a co-author?
Co-author.
All of those, before I rule on the motion, all of those who are interested to become co-author this bill, raise your hands. There is a pending motion on the referral of this bill, proposed bill to the Committee on Rules. It has been seconded. There being no objection, the same is hereby referred to the Committee on Rules. Majority Floor Leader.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, we proceed to the business of the day. We will I move to open the period of interpellation and debate on consideration of proposed resolution number 361.
The Secretary General is directed to flash on the screen
Of the principal
the title of
define
proposed resolution number 361.
the principal authors, Mr. Speaker, Rasul Mitmog, in the absence of MP Rasul Mitmog, any of the principal authors as indicated in the order of business may defend this particular resolution, Mr. Speaker. If there is none, we can defer consideration of this tomorrow. MP, may we respectfully recognize MP, but before that, Mr. Speaker, I move to open the period of interpellation of the witnesses.
The period of interpellation is now open.
Mr. Speaker, may I be allowed to share the plenary with other proponents of this measure?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Yes, Mr. Speaker, may we respectfully recognize...
Please, those who are interested to interpellate, please list your names.
Yan nga. May we respectfully recognize MP Zia, Mr. Speaker.
The Deputy Speaker, Zia Urahman Alonto Adjong, is recognized.
Thank you very much. Just a quick clarificatory questions, Mr. Speaker. One, the resolution merely requests the Darul Ifta to set the standards and guidelines on what constitute halal governance. Is that correct, Mr. Speaker?
No, this is We are tackling proposed resolution number 361.
Oh, sorry. So I will avail of the period of interpolation. Sorry,
Yeah.
Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Mr.
The
Speaker.
Secretariat, please flash on the screen the title of proposed resolution number 361.
The proposed resolution number 6361, Mr. Speaker, is all about encouraging all new appointed employees to take their respected oath of moral governance for the office of the Wali.
Are there any interpellators?
Mr. Speaker.
Speaker.
Speaker, but just I believe I laud the intention of this resolution, because this is just merely ministerial. This is also a requirement of the law under RA 1954. Just want to make sure that the newly appointed, once the transition period is over, and there will be elected officials now. Just want to guarantee from the proponent that this will only cover the transition period, because once there's going to be a regular parliament, then the language that is used in this resolution only pertains to the appointment, meaning even the current composition of the membership, since we are all appointed by this president.
I think the administrative code requires the oath of moral governance.
Yes, so that's just a guarantee, Mr. Speaker, just to put that on the record. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May I further move that we close the period of debate, because this is just a requirement of the law, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker.
Yes, may we respectfully recognize MP Tago, Mr. Speaker.
The Deputy Majority Floor Leader Tago is recognized.
This is actually it is more of the same on the line of questioning of MP Adyong regarding the purpose of this resolution. Is this resolution applicable only to those all appointed officials in the BARM? Yes, to the newly appointed, because the wording is the newly appointed officials of the BARM. So this resolution applicable only to the newly appointed officials. May I inquire from the
response to the clarificatory questions of the MP Tago.
Mr. Speaker, if I may answer, Mr. Speaker, as one of the proponents, because our principal author is in the Zoom. According to the resolution, Mr. Speaker, in the third whereas clause, section 24, under oath of office of public officers and employees, it shall cover all public officers and employees of the government before entering upon the discharge of their duties, Mr. Speaker. And that's the coverage, Mr. Speaker.
I ask that, Mr. Speaker, because the wording of the resolution is all newly appointed officials in the BARM. So that's why I asked that if the other officials, the previous officials of the BARM were not newly appointed, are they not covered? And secondly, secondly, regarding elected officials, are they not covered? That's my clarification to the sponsor, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, it's very clear in the resolution that it pertains to the appointed officials and employees, Mr. Speaker. And it is active, Mr. Speaker.
Second question, Mr. Speaker. May I know from the sponsor speaker, do we have a format on the oath on moral governance? Because we are talking of moral governance, do we have a format on the moral governance? Because we are in the government, this is a format for us. Before assumption to office, may format tayo na oath of office. Sa moral governance, oath on moral governance, do we have a format for that purpose? Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Glad that you asked it. May I bring the attention of the Honorable MP Tago to the second page of the resolution? there is a suggested oath there, wording for the oath of moral governance. The second page of the resolution indicates, contains the said format.
So in that case, Mr. Speaker, if in case this resolution will be approved, we will follow the format as stated in the proposed resolution.
Mr. Speaker, for as long as there will be no revisions or amendments during the period of period of amendments, I believe so, Mr. Speaker.
We will
Majority
follow.
Floor Leader, may I clarify?
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker.
Hindi ba sali sa administrative code yung oath of moral governance?
Mr. Speaker.
Yes,
I'm making a clarification here.
MP Rasulmit mo, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker.
I'm still making a clarification here, MP Mitmog. Did we not include in the administrative code the oath of moral governance? Is it not in section 24? Official oath and chapter 7, book 1. And is it with the wali appointing authority or any authorized person? This is just a clarificatory question.
Mr. Speaker, can I answer?
Yes, MP.
Mr. Speaker.
Took your recognized by the Speaker.
Mr. Speaker.
Yes, you are recognized.
Okay. Mr. Speaker, the oath of moral governance, as mentioned in the resolution, that's the very same text of that same oath that should be done under the admin code. So no changes in that. But the main purpose of the resolution is to encourage all new employees after the admin code, Mr. Speaker, to immediately take oath with the wali. Mainly two purposes, Mr. Speaker. One is to encourage taking the oath of moral governance. Second, Mr. Speaker, is to encourage the people to recognize the office of the wali, which is one of the newest office in the BARM. And it's one of the very unique office in the BARM. It's not found anywhere in the Philippines, Mr. Speaker. So everybody will have the idea that we have a wali, and we take the oath of moral governance with the wali, if possible. That's why the wording is encourage all newly appointed employees, Mr. Speaker.
Our point here is, as far as the validity of the appointment, will it be valid if we list the wali as a person authorized to undertake oath?
Yes, Mr.
Newly
Speaker.
appointed?
He's one of those persons who we can take oath to, Mr. Speaker.
Is it listed in the administrative code?
Yeah, it is. Mr. Speaker, if I may.
Yeah, the gentleman, the lady from Maguindanao is recognized.
Yeah, section 25 of administrative code identifies the following officers have the general authority to administer oath: wali, Bangsamoro Mufti, Chief Minister, members of the Judiciary, Speaker of the Parliament, Cabinet Ministers, the Bangsamoro Attorney General, the Chief Executives of local government units. But, Mr. Speaker, I believe that the intention of the resolution is, as much as possible, the oath of office should be done by the wali, having our highest official, aside from the Chief Minister, Mr. Speaker.
With due respect to the wali, he's not the highest official. He's merely
what I mean is
a ceremonial official.
head of the government, Mr. Speaker.
Anyway, it's listed number 1. He is entitled he is authorized to administer oath. So,
Mr. Speaker.
would the word encouraging be proper?
Yeah, the word is encouraging as much as possible that it should be done by the wali in order to pay respect to the his position as the ceremonial head of the government.
Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, another clarification regarding the oath to Wali. Supposing you did not talk to Wali, is it? My question is it mandatory that the new employees should take their oath of moral governance to Wali and nothing else?
Mr. Speaker, again, I'd like to reiterate that the word used in the resolution is encouraging. That it should be the.
It is not mandatory, Mr. Speaker. It is not mandatory.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
The words encourage is as much as possible. If it is,
Yes, Mr.
it can be done, but it is not mandatory, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker.
Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I believe that there is a pending motion by MPC Alonso. But before that, Mr. Speaker, may we respectfully
What
request
is the pending motion?
the
To
close the
terminate-
period of interpellation and debate. But there is one who would like to interpellate, Mr. Speaker. MP Sultan, Mr. Speaker, Sultan Rimba.
MP Sultan Rimbang is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much, Majority Floor Leader. Mr. Proponent, Madam Engineer Baintan, o si Atty. Smith Merg, clarification ko lang, sa manunumpa sa Wali, ay kasama ba rito yung mga member of parliament? Kasi ang nag-appoint sa atin ay presidente at doon din tayo manunumpa sa presidente.
Mr. Speaker, the assumption here is when the regular government comes in, they are elected officials already, Mr. Speaker, and therefore their oath of office should be covered by another jurisdiction, Mr. Speaker. What is provided in this resolution are newly appointed employees only, Mr. Speaker.
Not the BTA
Officials and
members.
employees.
Tapos na tayo sa BTA, di ba?
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
So, kailangan pa rin ba sa Wali dumaan kahit galing sa appointed na government? Halimbawa, kung maka-extend tayo o may bagong BTA, ang mag-appointed ay presidente. Sa pagkakalam ko, doon din tayo manunumpa sa loob ng Malacanang. So, kailangan pa rin ba manumpa ulit sa Wali? Understood what I mean, Mr. Speaker. Understood po yun na di sa loob na Bangsamoro na sakop na moral governance ay kung may bagong appointing Ministry of mga director dito sa BAM, I understood po yun na namamahala doon ay BAM sa Wali. Ang memin ko po yung galing sa Malacanang mismo.
Please answer in Tagalog so that the
Ang pagkakaintindi ko po, pag ang isang appointee ay presidential appointee, kailangan po manumpa doon po sa Malacanang po. So kung meron mang extension na mangyayari, ang panunumpa ay doon po sa kung sino yung nag-appoint yung presidente po.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Dalang clarification ko. Dahil nga baka po mapangunahan po natin yung nag-appoint sa atin. Thank you, Speaker. Atty. Mashima sa Member of Parliament. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Madjo.
Speaker.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Sir.
Salam.
Thank you.
The Minority Floor Leader is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Majority Floor Leader. Nice ko lang i-clarify po yun, no? This is a good discussion or interpellation. It is mandatory under the Bangsamoro Administrative Code or BAA number 13 under Section 24, Chapter 7. It is mandatory to take the oath of moral governance. Iba po ito dun sa oath na we take whenever we are appointed. So kung ang presidente ang nag-appoint, we take our oath before the president to defend the Constitution, etc. Pero as a BARM employee or official, aside from the oath of office for public officers and employees, pursuant to the Bangsamoro Administrative Code na nasa next paragraph nung Section 24, it is mandatory to take the oath of moral governance. Ito yung yamin, ito yung oath on moral governance that was revised a bit, no? Ito natin during the ceremonial launching or inauguration of the BARM government. It's there, found also under Section 24. So, mandatory ang nakalagay sa administrative code. So, kung sa oath of moral governance, I think, Mr. Speaker, it is possible that based on this resolution that we take, the all newly appointed employees are encouraged to take the oath of moral governance before the wali, aside from the oath of office for public officers and employees, para dun sa mga hindi presidente ang nag-appoint pero dito lamang po sa atin sa BARM. So pwede po ang chief minister, pwede rin po yung wali. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Majority Floor Leader.
There is a standing motion for to close the period of...
There is a motion, period of debate and interpellation has been seconded. Said motion is hereby approved.
Mr. Speaker, I move to open the period of amendment.
The period of amendment is now open.
Mr. Speaker, I move to close the period of amendment.
There is a motion to close the period of amendment. It's been seconded. The period of amendment is now terminated.
Mr. Speaker, I move to approval and adoption of this proposed resolution.
Subject to style.
Subject to style, Mr. Speaker.
There's a motion to approve and adopt proposed resolution number 361 subject to style. Any second?
Second.
There being no objection, proposed resolution number 361 is hereby approved and adopted.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Subject to style.
The next business problem, Mr. Speaker, the principal authors are not present, Mr. Speaker, so that we can provide it in the unfinished business tomorrow session, Mr. Speaker.
Yes. Who is?
May we request the following principal authors?
Who is the principal author of proposed
MP Rasul Mitmog, MP Abdullah Hashim, and MP Paisalid Tago, Mr. Speaker. Proposed resolution number 413. There is only one principal author. The others is co-author. Proposed resolution number 428, Abdullah Hashim. And proposed resolution number 444, MP Paisalin Tago, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, may we ask these colleagues whether or not they will be available tomorrow so that we dispose of these measures?
Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Mr. May we Abdullah Hashim.
MP Abdullah Hashim, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As for myself, inshallah, I will be available tomorrow, inshallah.
How about MP Rasul Mitmog?
And MP Paisalin Tago.
Yes, and MP Paisalin Tago.
Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, I cannot be present still tomorrow, Mr. Speaker. Waiting for the results of the test, COVID test, Mr. Speaker.
Have to find a solution on this. We need to dispose of these resolutions tomorrow.
MP Paisalin Tago, Mr. Speaker.
Same here, Mr. Speaker. I cannot be attending physically tomorrow because I have urgent matters here.
Anyway, it will be.
It will discuss in the.
Yeah, it will be the pleasure of the plenary whether or not to relax the rules tomorrow and allow co-authors to defend the two measures.
Mr. Speaker.
At the pleasure of the.
Mr. Speaker, we can provide it in the other session. This, Mr. Speaker. We have
Mr.
so much.
Speaker.
Yes, MP Mawalil.
I understand that that portion of the agreement was done during the early days of our session last year, after the declaration of the pandemic. but I would like to be enlightened which part of the rules that says that those are participating or present virtually cannot render their defense of their proposed measure resolution.
We are
For
talking
the,
about the principal authors.
Yes,
yes, the
principal
principal
authors.
author.
We are
Just
talking
a-
about the principal authors here.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, after conversation with the Speaker, Mr. Presiding Officer, the reason that is for convenient because if the principal authors is not here, Mr. Speaker, and there is a question that needs his present to discuss on that particular
Yeah.
resolution, Mr. Speaker, we need the principal author.
To be clear,
That's the main
Mr.
reason, Mr. Speaker.
Just to be clear, Mr. Speaker, that this is not actually part of the rules.
This is not
Yes.
written, but it is a practice.
It
Yes,
is a
Mr.
practice of integrate that
Yes.
to the rules. So I think we can have some leeway on that.
Yes,
since
Mr. Speaker.
The rules does not prohibit members of the parliament who are participating virtually to
Yes,
render
Mr.
their
Speaker.
sponsorship
Uh,
speech.
this is also there is no one who knows who can defend properly the resolution except the principal authors, Mr. Speaker. So, as per experience, Mr. Speaker, there is a difficulty on whether what approach or what solutions if there is a problem arising during the discussion if the principal author is not present, Mr. Speaker.
May I, Mr. Speaker?
Yes.
The reason
That is
why
why we are saying it is the title of our rules is Parliamentary Rules, Procedures, and Practices. It has been practiced, and therefore we can agree whether or not we will relax or implement case-to-case basis.
my point, Mr. Speaker, gleaning from the experience of since we have been hooked into the proceedings of the Senate of the Philippines, I think some of the proponents of the measures are allowed to defend their measure virtually. So, to fast track the pending legislation, the pending measures, I move that may we allow the proponents who are participating virtually to defend their proposed measure, just to fast track our work in the parliament. Just my opinion, Mr.
Yes. The deputy, and I would
Mr.
MP
Speaker.
Bayentan and the deputy majority floor leader.
Thank you very much.
Speaker, this is also
I recognize first the Deputy Speaker Adyong MP Tago, followed by MP Bayentan, and then you will follow MP Bayentan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is in line with this is in consonance with the line of reasoning of MP Mawalin. If we can refresh our memory, Mr. Speaker, at the first of during the onset of the pandemic, we had trouble gathering in one place to hold the regular session. So I think the primary consideration at that time why Speaker Balintong also would discourage defending the measures of those who are the authors who are joining online is because of the erratic Wi-Fi connection.
Yes.
And we would have trouble discussing it here. Now, Mr. Speaker, we have a reliable connection now. We also have our improved monitor, and I believe some of the members who are also joining online have steady connection of their internet. So, in fact, based on the sessions last month, malakas at hindi mabagal at walang disconnection sa kanyang connection, Mr.
stable.
Speaker. So I think that's one. And we have already addressed that. And congratulations, Mr. Speaker, to our technicians. Number two, Mr. Speaker, is I think the co-authors can already defend the measure because the fact that they have all supported it, they affixed their signature, meaning to say they would come hell or high water, they will defend the measure because they have supported it, Mr. Speaker. So I believe in terms of the commitment to support, in terms of the knowledge and the knowledge and all the information that we want to solicit from the authors can also be addressed and can also be answered by the co-authors, Mr. Speaker. And that's just my line of reasoning. And I hope we can relax and allow those members on joining us online, authors, to defend their measure, Mr. Speaker, online. Thank you.
Yes, MP Baintan.
Mr. Speaker, I would like also to remind the body, one of the reason of the Speaker, Ali Pangalan Balindong, in discouraging the defending of a bill or resolution through Zoom is this will in effect members of the Parliament not to attend this session but opted instead to go in Zoom just to defend the bills and resolution. Mr. Speaker, napapansin ko po as a majority floor leader of this August body, Mr. Speaker, na pakonti ng pakonti tayo at maraming pumupunta sa Zoom dahil doon sila na ewan ko anong rason. So, yun po ang sabi ng Speaker sa akin noon na pag tayo ay magdi-defense lagi sa Zoom, ay darating ang time na lahat tayo ay nasa Zoom na lang at hindi na tayo mag-attend ng session. So, nakalagay po sa rules natin na dito sa session na to at least 32 no ang dapat na physical present dito, pero ngayon ay nasa 20 plus na lang ang umaattend and 30 plus ang nasa Zoom. Yun po, Mr. Speaker, sana wag po natin gawin na puro mag-Zoom na lang tayo, magiging 40 plus ang member ng Parliament na Zoom at 10 na lang ang mag-attend dito sa Parliament, Mr. Speaker. I just wanted to put on record, Mr. Speaker, to our members, to other members.
Duly noted, Majority Floor Leader. Yes, the lady from Maguindanao.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Just also to put it in record, Mr. Speaker, that perhaps one of the reasons why we are very few in the plenary is that because there's a surge right now in Cotabato City and we cannot oblige everyone to go here and risk given the situation, Mr. Speaker. Baka naman ma-misinterpret tayo na yung iba ay ayaw. And besides, yung iba ay under testing, no? So, kagaya ng sinabi ni MP Rasul. But my point here, Mr. Speaker, is I support the motion of MP Mawali that we may allow interpellation or depending of the bills and resolution via Zoom. But as much as possible, I would like to request the Secretariat to do some due diligence work, Mr. Speaker, that before including it in agenda, Mr. Speaker, they should try to call the proponent if the proponent will be available that day physically, so that as much as possible, the proponent should be here, no? Last option na po yung nasa Zoom ang pag-depend kagaya nung may situation na acceptable. Kung acceptable naman yung situation and the co-authors are here to defend, I think that's understandable, Mr. Speaker. So my manifestation, Mr. Speaker, is accounting CSW, completed staff work on the part of the Secretariat, na kung isasalang yung bill, tawagan yung MP or yung staff ng MP kung available si MP, no? So yun lang po, Mr. Speaker.
Duly noted. The Secretariat, please take note.
Final note po from my part, Mr. Speaker. Doon po sa issue na discouraging the joining of in the session online. Actually, Mr. Speaker, those who are online is actually they are complying with the memorandum. Remember, every time we receive an email, nakasaad po doon, those who are in the high-risk area are encouraged to join online. So I think those members who are now online are merely complying with the memorandum, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Yes, duly noted. Yes. But I think requiring a member to attend his bill or resolution is not something that is difficult to do. May mag-attend na isang member dito, hindi man tataas yung attendance siguro or yung risk kung mag-isa lang siya darating dito, no? So, Majority Floor Leader.
MP John Ramos, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, just a follow-up clarification on what MP Zia has just mentioned earlier regarding the allowing of co-authors in the absence of principal authors. If they're allowed, if we have a policy allowing co-authors to represent the principal authors, Mr. Speaker.
I think, Mr. Speaker, may
my proposal, Mr. Speaker, if the principal author would allow to co-authors to defend his particular resolution or bill, Mr. Speaker, that will be okay, Mr.
Yes,
Speaker.
because that's a
It
time
would
allotted.
it would be on the part of the principal authors whether to accept the co-authors to defend his particular resolution or bill, Mr. Speaker.
In that case, Mr. Speaker, I think I have to agree on the suggestion that the Secretariat should inform the principal authors if there are bills or resolutions that are scheduled, so that the members of the Parliament would have the option actually to physically attend if he or she wants to defend his or her bills or resolutions. That would be all, Mr. Speaker.
So, Mr. Speaker, my proposal in the next session, Mr. Speaker, if the principal author cannot attend the session, he may delegate any members of any co-authors to defend his particular resolution, Mr. Speaker. That will be our practice, Mr. Speaker.
That is a motion?
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Or manifestation?
Manifestation, Mr. Speaker.
Second.
Mr. Speaker, may I make a manifestation?
There is a pending motion by MP Amir Mawalil to allow co-authors to defend or to appear in lieu of the principal author who cannot attend and
Mr.
defend.
Speaker, subject with the amendments, Mr. Speaker, if the principal author so allow, Mr. Speaker.
If there is a pending motion to allow co-authors to defend a certain measure if the principal author is not available and allows the co-author to defend a certain measure. Any second? It has been seconded. There being no objection, the same is hereby approved.
Mr. Speaker, may I make a manifestation?
The Deputy Speaker Nabil Tan is recognized. MP Hassan? Hashim?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, may I?
You are recognized. You are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would just like to have a clarification. On my part, actually, I'm just trying to follow the protocols and health guidelines. And I believe also the other, my fellow members of parliament who are in the Zoom are also doing so. Actually, in our office, we have a couple of, we had a couple of positive staff, and they have completed their quarantine period, and they have been granted from the local health authorities that they have finished, and all of the symptoms have disappeared from them. So we, in our office, we have personally experienced the effects of this pandemic, and it is just alhamdulillah that our office, my humble office, is outside of the ORZ compound, and it hasn't created any complications for the barn. So that is just my clarification and explanation. But inshallah, we will try to attend tomorrow to defend the resolution, proposed resolution, and we will try our best to comply with the health protocols. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Noted. So you will attend tomorrow. How about MP Rasul and MP Tagu? Will you designate co-authors to defend your measures?
I would have to designate, Mr. Speaker, because I'm waiting for my test.
MP Tago?
Yes, I will designate also co-authors to defend my proposed resolution, Mr. Speaker.
Noted. Secretariat, please take note. Majority Floor Leader?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. There being no other agenda on the order of business, Mr. Speaker, but I have one other matters, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Our medical doctor, Mr. Speaker, would like to have a survey on members of the Parliament to fill up the medical information related to every member of the Parliament as well as their staff, Mr. Speaker, so that they can monitor their health, the status of the MPs as well as their staff, Mr. Speaker. So please comply with the survey question and answer, Mr. Speaker, by the medical staff of the BTA Parliament.
Is that a written questionnaire?
No,
Region
Mr. Speaker.
survey?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. In the during the attendance, Mr. Speaker, to fill up the information, Mr. Speaker.
Okay. Tomorrow?
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Okay.
Mr. Speaker.
MP Nabiltan, Mr. Speaker.
MP Nabiltan, you're recognized.
Just a query. Kanina, how did we dispose of it? Yung principal author na? I was following the discussion. Yung principal author be allowed to depend via Zoom, and the purpose cited is to fast track the passage of these necessary measures pending. And I think we were allowed to do Zoom, to appear via Zoom because of the pandemic. And the pandemic has not yet eased up or has not yet disappeared. In fact, many are contracting the viruses, the COVID viruses. So I guess it's high time to, maybe for the rules, to come out with certain recommendations and maybe allow in the meantime the defense of by the principal author by Zoom, by virtual appearance. It will not be a permanent thing because when the COVID is sometimes eased up already, maybe we can go back to being physically present. But at the moment, there is no. For me personally, it doesn't make sense not to allow principal authors to depend via Zoom when you're allowed to attend sessions via Zoom. Anyway, it's just a practice. It can be a temporary arrangement and maybe require them to be physically present after this in the coming months or next year. So I hope that will still be considered to allow them to not to delegate that to the co-authors, because sometimes you're just co-authoring, you're not even read the resolution or the bills. Magpakatotoo tayo dahil nagka-affix lang ng signature ng iba na hindi man binabasa na yata yung last page na lang for signature without any offense meant, no? But I think there is no point in prohibiting principal author from defending via Zoom. Yung dwindling is still about the COVID yan. Dwindling attendance, yung iba naman, mga ministers, bihira na natin makita. Sabi nila, except for a few, with the exception of a few. Bihira na maka-attend sila eh. Kaya nagkakaproblema tayo in person.
Yeah. So, yes, I think we will have to refer that to the speaker because
in the first place,
Mr.
Speaker, in the first place, Mr. Speaker, the principal author can speak through Zoom. We cannot prohibit them to speak in Zoom. But my proposal, Mr. Speaker, is although the principal author can defend the particular measure in Zoom, there will be someone here among the co-authors who can join them to defend the particular bills. That is a main
meron lang co-authors present yan physically.
Yes, yes.
The principal author can still answer. Okay, thank you,
Yes.
Mr. Majority Leader.
Just a short manifestation, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
I agree with the point of MP Nabiltan. Actually, that was my intent earlier when I raised the issue. And also as the main proponent of the allowed members to participate via virtually. My understanding was that policy, that agreement, that no one in the Zoom can defend his measure or resolution as a principal proponent will only work for a limited period of time. And my call is actually my motion was to really allow the main proponent to be fair with those who are in the Zoom, who are also equally working to put forward their legislative agenda. So my appeal, Mr. Speaker, visit this policy
practice.
to consult the leadership, the minority leader, the majority leader, and the speaker to probably allow some leeway in
We will consult the speaker on this matter.
but just for the record that I do not agree that those who are in the Zoom have less intention to work equally as we are in the physically present. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, duly noted.
Other matter?
MP,
I think we have dealt so much on the matter. There is still one resolution.
no, Mr. Speaker, other matters.
Other matters, Mr. Speaker.
There is still another resolution, the parliamentary caucus.
Wala man si President.
This is other matters, Mr. Speaker. Considering that on June 30, 2021, the contracts of our members from different ministries are going to end, Mr. Speaker. So much so that there will be a vacuum in government services, namely like the MAFAR, the MENRE,
The parliament.
and other members of the parliament. May we include in the agenda, Mr. Speaker, the petition under Rule 16, Section 4 and 5, meaning any member of the BTA may explain the object of the request, which is for the government of the day, Mr. Speaker, to finally issue their stand or their position on the matter of extension of the contractual employees. One of the manifesto that I received, Mr. Speaker, is from the MAFAR. The MAFAR municipal officers of Lanao del Sur appeals to the Bangsamoro Transition Authority, Parliament, through the Honorable Speaker of the House, Attorney Pangalian Balindong, for the extension of service of MAFAR municipal officers from BARM Lanao del Sur. In fact, Mr. Speaker, they gave this on May 3, 2021. It's already June 23, Mr. Speaker, and there's only a matter of 7 days. And
We request the lady from Tugaya to submit a copy of the
Mr.
the manifesto to the secretariat so that it will be immediately communicated to the speaker.
Yes, Mr.
Speaker. And the chief minister.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. I would
Mr.
like.
Speaker, may I have a manifestation, Mr. Speaker? I believe we passed a resolution for the extension of the employees. This resolution is effective until December 31, 2021, Mr. Speaker. Would that cover that extension, Mr. Speaker? Because that resolution is very specific. All those employees under extension, Mr. Speaker, their extension will expire December 31, 2021, Mr. Speaker.
Yeah.
Clarification. The resolution that we passed, if I can still remember clearly, is that all accountable officers of the Bangsamoro government, including the parliament, will be extended until December. However, for all others, their will end on June 30, 2021. We are in a quandary, therefore, of how government services will continue after June 30, 2021 without these officers and employees. So may we know, Mr. Speaker, if there is a forthcoming resolution coming from the government of the day.
We are not aware of that, but we are asking the lady from Tugaya to immediately furnish a copy of that manifesto or anything that has reached you to the secretariat so that they can immediately furnish the office of the speaker and the office of the chief minister on the matter.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, because we have until for that action to happen because their term will end definitely on June 30, 2021.
There is still time for you to submit a resolution tomorrow.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
I will submit this manifesto from the MAPAR employees of Lanao del Sur to the good Secretary General. And Mr. Speaker, MP Zia also has been aware of this very huge issue of vacuum in government services on June 30, 2021.
Yeah, MP Zia, you're recognized.
Thank you. Just a support to the manifestation of the lady from Tugaya on procedural matters, Mr. Speaker. We were approached by the employees of MAFAR in Lanao del Sur. And again, it was laid down, explained to us sufficiently by the lady from Tugaya. On the procedural matter, Mr. Speaker, we agreed, Mr. Speaker, that the manifesto will be addressed to the Speaker and to the ICM. But essentially, Mr. Speaker, what we need to do and what they're asking is a resolution, is an action from the Parliament, because that would cover eligibility. That would cover the tenure who are about to be dismissed from office on June 30. So it requires parliamentary action. So we would, on procedural matter, Mr. Speaker, once we accept and we deliver this letter to the Secretary General, we hope that the Majority Leader will include that item under the communication received so that we can discuss this and for the Parliament to contemplate on filing a resolution. Because
Yes.
this is not only a concern of MP Maysara Latif or MP Adyong, it concerns, Mr. Speaker, entirely the Parliament, because it will affect the delivery of services, the bureaucracy of MAFAR in Lanao del Sur and perhaps in some other areas in the bar, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Yeah,
Mr.
duly
Speaker,
noted.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, may we request the two MPs to reduce that in through resolution, Mr. Speaker, so that we can discuss it in the Parliament.
I think
Mr. Speaker.
before they can pass a resolution, they should first furnish the Secretary General and the Secretary General so that it can come up as a communication received, and then tomorrow they can submit the resolution.
Mr. Speaker,
Yes,
we are
Mr.
ready for in response to the good majority floor leader's request, Mr. Speaker, we are ready to submit our proposed resolution to prevent the vacuum.
You can submit parallel
Yes, Mr.
the
Speaker,
manifesto.
we can submit it today, Mr. Speaker. We will transmit it today, Mr. Speaker. And we will include other members of the Parliament also, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Will you include also the other members as authors, majority
Yes,
floor leader?
But I would like also to remind those members of MPs that we are now governed by the administrative code,
Yes.
and definitely the administrative code amended the previous structures
Yes.
of the ministry, Mr. Speaker. And I believe there are Mr. Speaker, for the record, who abolished the municipal level, Mr. Speaker, and remain it to the provincial level. Baka pakitignan na rin po yun, Mr. Speaker. Hindi lang po ako sigurado ano yung mga minister na yun na parang nilipat na sa municipal government yung services na yun, Mr. Speaker.
Anyway, they will still have to submit the manifesto.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
So any other matter?
There being no other matter, Mr. Speaker, I move to adjourn this session until tomorrow.
Session is adjourned until tomorrow at 1 o'clock p.m.